Before I can speak about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, we need to understand what's on them, the foundational frequency and knowledge that is contained within them. This is the Opa, desire breath. This story begins for me in 1976 when I was living in Carmel, California. It was at that time that it was requested of me to have created a silver seal. This the kind that you stamp in wax, and it would have ancient symbols upon it. I did as requested, and it was a beautiful piece, ornately designed by a craftsman of Carmel, California. In 1989, I entrusted the seal to a spiritual colleague, Estrella, who took it with her on a sacred journey, and also these special papers that had the symbols on them. Once at Mount Sinai, she was to seal these papers with the wax, with the seal, and then bury the seal in the desert there. Thoth requested that I keep the returned sealed papers for a future time. On the day before the Venus transit, June 7, 2004, when I was living on Maui, that future time had arrived. On that date, my former husband Simeon and Estrella and some other colleagues went to the top of Haleakala crater on Maui, and in the crater we buried 12 small folded sheets of handmade paper containing these sacred words that were sealed with wax at the foot of Mount Sinai in the Sinai Desert in 1989. First, we were to break the seals, and then, along with the now broken sealed paper, several small stones were buried at Haleakala, one of them from the site of Masada in the Dead Sea region of Israel. The Masada Plateau is anchoring a location for the future city of Korbola, which is the main entry point of the Templar matrix into this space-time dimension. Now, the Templar is a matrix that will be connected and is already actually connecting into the Pyramidus radius. All these are grids of ultra-dimensional frequency that are forming in the earth. On that day in June 2004, as my companions and I climbed down through the mists and jungle ferns onto the rim of Haleakala crater, which is the largest dormant volcano in the world, we were bringing the sealed symbols from the Sinai to Haleakala through a linear passage of 15 years, which brought about powerful feelings of both completion and new beginnings for me. As we opened each seal to reveal the images within which I had drawn in silver ink onto the blue handmade paper, I felt an incredible charge go through my body, yet centering profoundly in the heart. I knew then that it was now time to understand more about these symbols and realize that their journey had only just begun. It has been revealed to me that these 12 symbols, which were given to me to transcribe upon the papers in 1989, are called the Opa, O-P-A-H, meaning the sphere or circle of light that calls new creations into existence. The word is of the Alawi, which is the first language, first brought to the life of sound from the impulses of the brain in the most ancient days of Lemuria. Opa is the sound in its first forming out of the mouth of the Elohim, or creation lords. This first forming is not sound, it is an etheric pattern that precedes the sound, the desire that is then made manifest in the word. The Opa is spherical, like a swirling bubble containing the etheric desire breath that proceeds into the second form, which is the manifest breath. As the Opa gathers intent, through desire, so the sphere breath becomes more radiant with divine luminescence. When a human reaches into the heart seed of his/her being, and touches the kernel of love and devotion to the godness of all things, so the opa, the desire breath, is released. This is the beginning of a new creation in the universe. Seedling light veins are formed that connect to the opa of many other souls. In this way, a body or star Merkaba will eventually form to shine forth in the heavens. The entire process is of course vast and complex in arrangement of its components, but this is the end result. The Elohim, or creation lords, are universal intelligences who are beyond what we understand as individual souls, for they incorporate soulness into a broader spectrum of awareness. Yet they are us, for we all create opa that join together. The Elohim simply form deeper connections into the strands we offer them through the sacred geometry within the pulses of our DNA. As humanity moves closer to the center of the desire breath, so we become the new evolutionary level of creation lords, merging our soulness with a more expanded band of awareness. The Opa symbols, then, are keynote triggers that can act upon our head brains and heart brains and quicken even deeper responses within the crystals of the DNA. They are intended to facilitate the desire breath for those who meditate with them. There are 12, for there are 12 movements of the desire breath and 12 main meridians that are stimulated in the DNA to create the Opa. These 12 meridians come out of 12 crystalline geometries within the DNA, which in the Aloe language is called the IVI. I choose to spell this with a capital I at both ends, as I see the Aloe glyphs for these crystalline geometries as that spelling, IVI. The two columns, the II, with the inverted open-ended triangle, V, in the center. The 12 IVI crystalline geometries or crystals are vibrating Merkabic thresholds of light, which form the creation patterns for our energy Merkabas, inclusive of the physical body. As the IVI spin, the connective threads, which at the meeting points are revealed to us as our human form and energy systems, so the desire breath is inhaled and exhaled by the whole being. The IVI and the Opa, then, are the key resonators for all life. Life not only as we witness it from this reality, but the complete energy light geometries of the living being from its point of divine inception at source. The purpose of creating a link on the planet between Sinai and the Dead Sea and Haleakala on Maui is significant, and I will touch upon it only briefly here. In essence, these two nodes on the planet contain major cities of light along the future timeline of Earth. As these 2 points received the imprint of the Opa symbols, so they joined forces in a new pattern of breath for the planet, opening the way to the 4444 Stargate. The 4444 Stargate is simply a term being used to signify the doorway to full realization of our true composition and beingness in the universe. Now I would pause and say, obviously, our little act of burying the seals and the whole thing with the trip to Sinai and all of that, as magical as it was not the only thing that caused this transference of energy, this incredible experience on the planet. We were simply a part of it, a cog in the wheel. Now to continue. To place the significance of the Opa seals into perspective, they could look differently than they do. The images chosen, however, were from the original Book of Breaths, or Hau Teka of Lemuria. These symbols were chosen by my illumined mentor, Thoth, as they have a powerful charge from past association with the 12 movements of desire breath. And now in 2023, at the end of this video, the new revolutions, signatures of these seals, as it is received by me and I'm able to interpret them, will be revealed. To skip forward in time, upon my return to Crestone, Colorado in 2017, Thoth guided me to scan those symbols, complete in color so they would really register the imprint of the originals. And myself with a group of friends here went out into the Baca Grande, which are the lowlands next to Crestone, and we weren't far from the ziggurat, a mound with a ziggurat on it, very mysterious and also a special place as far as Thoth is concerned. So there we buried these scanned copies of the Opa symbols and went through a ceremony. According to Thoth, this connected the two areas and the experiences through time. This region of Crestone, Colorado, as many of you know, according to Thoth, is the crown chakra of the ascension dynamic of the planet. And now we proceed to the Emerald Tablets. Thoth states that the Emerald Tablets were connected into a grid of what he calls the Enochian Emerald Table. But let us begin at the beginning. Thoth Muzuru, the original Thoth, transported the Enochian Table, among other names, from the blue star Rigel in the constellation of Orion. This table was not originally an object, but a geometric hologram stored within and projected from the DNA of Thoth Muzuru. It was in essence a psionic template of the highest order, one that contained, among other things, the entire DNA encoding of life on Earth from its inception to its conclusion as a consciousness system. How could this be? Illumined beings such as Thoth Muzuru, later to incarnate as Thoth Racemus of Afra, have a vast knowledge of the true nature of DNA and how it organizes in the universe. While many factors come into play in regard to the development of its material form, the underlying organization of its light form is dedicated before it begins its unfolding as an energy body, just as a fetus in the womb is already programmed for a specific material organization based on the DNA codes of its parents. The crystalline field of a DNA determines the overall movement and diversity that the DNA will take in the whole system. The whole system of a planet, with its numerous systems within systems, is imprinted within the crystalline field that creates and resides within the DNA. The crystalline field receives its programming from what the Lemurians called iconos. The iconos are floating rods of etheric plasma that move in a wave form through dimensions. They are not found in space, but in the etheric sea which contains space. The iconos are almost beyond our comprehension, but basically, very basically, they are intelligent conductors of the original creation. They contain the alpha and omega codes of the universe. When they interact with the Hecates, or creation cones of world systems, the 12 major crystalline geometries, or IVI, are formed with a crystalline field radiating out from them. While DNA can and does change, whatever changes it makes are already anticipated within its crystalline field, for this field draws upon the iconos, which are not limited by time. The DNA crystalline field with its 12 main IVI geometries are outside the time continuum and therefore knowledgeable of all points on the timeline at any given pattern. They are operating, in other words, in a quantum field. I will not go any further with the topic of DNA here, but wish to bring the reader and the listener into an understanding that the Enochian table was and is a vast holographic geometry system which was taken into the DNA of Thoth Muzurut for the purpose of aiding the Earth's kind in creating more refined systems within the original template of their divine program. When Thoth Muzurut returned as Thoth Racemus, he once again contained the Enochian table within his DNA. As Thoth Racemus, he had created an actual physical object, the Emerald Table, into which the Enochian geometries were inserted into charged tablets of alchemically created emerald. The purpose of this table was to allow technicians trained by Thoth to work with the Enochian geometries to facilitate balancing the information fields of the planet. Going to pause for a moment. You will notice in the images I've created here of the tablets that they are obviously like iPad tablets. They are computers, and they each have a set focus that is registering, and when you put them together, that focus is complete. It was from the blueprints or sacred geometries of the Enochian table that Thoth Muzurut constructed as master architect the Great Pyramid, among other ancient structures. As Thoth Racemus, he oversaw its reconstruction after the Great Flood using these same blueprints. The Great Pyramid and its complex on the plain of Giza, Egypt, is in itself an encoding in stone of the planetary DNA program, in that it was built to respond to the major thresholds of that program as they unfold on and in the Earth. The Emerald Table lay beneath the Giza Plateau in a hidden chamber, yet in recent years was relocated to Thoth's retreat beneath Lake Titicaca in Peru. Yet it is missing one of its tablets, the 13th of the 13. Without this tablet, it cannot be operated. Thoth Racemus took the 13th tablet of emerald with him when he went into a vault which enabled his body to transform so that he could move into and dwell within the inner earth. The 13th tablet remains in that vault for a future age. I will pause here and say that I now know that Thoth operates the Emerald Table quite a lot without the 13th tablet. And the reason for that is that he is the 13th tablet. In other words, his frequency can command the system. Each of the first 12 emerald tablets contain living light symbols, LLS, which radiate the seraphimic flames of the Elohim programs of light that sponsor the sacred geometries of DNA encodings into life. The first LLS on each of the first 12 tablets is one of the 12 Opah sacred breaths, or desire breaths, of creation, which are quickened by the IVI crystalline geometries of the DNA. Therefore, each of the first 12 emerald tablets contains one of the 12 Opah breath symbols, as depicted in the Lemurian Book of Breaths. I will also pause here and say that's not the only symbol on each of the tablets. The 13th tablet is the catalyst for the preceding 12. It reconciles the randomness of the light mathematical codes of DNA potentials found in the 12. It is therefore a primary reconciler, bringing all potentials to a common point of logos, the word. Thoth Racemus's radionics technicians were called Tir Amat. The Tir Amat were not only trained to use the Emerald Table, but they came from the ranks of Thoth Kuri, which could be seen as his primary circle of priests and priestesses in the Academy of Thoth, also named Academy Urosis by Thoth Racemus, and in the city of On, it was also called the Academy of On, so it had a lot of different names. Of course, this is in Egypt. The Tiamat worked with 72 primary templates, called the Kaf, meaning divine resonances, as given to them by Thoth, which he transferred into their third eye. By placing these templates with the Emerald Table, various planetary balances were achieved. Human transformations were also brought about using these combinations, which allowed individual initiates of the Temple of Thoth to enter a high state of alchemical transformation for the purpose of initiating rarefied state potentials within the entire human race.